Hello, this is Monica Sawyer. Welcome to Real Estate Investing for Women, where we focus on all aspects of real estate investing, including strategies, mindset, emotional mastery, money smarts, and so much more to ensure your success. If you'd like to learn my personal favorite investing strategy, just go to blissfulinvestor.com. You can also listen to this episode on the Real Estate Investing for Women podcast on iTunes. Now, let's welcome our guest. Today, I am so excited to welcome to the show Jake Stenziano and Gino Barbaro. Jake and Gino are best-selling authors and founders of jakeandgino.com, an education platform helping others achieve financial freedom through multifamily real estate investing. Jake and Gino have owned and operated over 1,500 multi-units, have $100 million in assets. I looked at all those zeros and went, wow, under management. And they host the #1 multifamily real estate podcast on iTunes, Wheelbarrow Profits. Hey there, guys. Welcome to the show. How are you?
Good, Monica. Nice to meet you. Nice to talk to you today.
Yeah, I've been looking forward to this show. Hey there. So you guys, why don't you give us like a quick high level 2-minute, how did you meet? Tell us a little bit about your story.
So for us, it was back in 2009 that I had a restaurant and my partner, Jake, was a pharmaceutical rep, and he used our restaurant for pharmaceutical orders for to go to doctor's offices, and he was catering out of there. And I was introduced through my brother, and my brother had a good relationship with Jake. They were really good friends, and I was stuck in the kitchen. So our relationship, grew slowly. He would come in, he'd place orders. I loved the way he worked. He was the only pharmaceutical rep that I've ever met that actually had a calendar of events, and he was going to doctors, scheduling them, and he was really on point. I was really impressed by the way he was just prepared and the way he was just willing to work hard. So, 2 years goes by and Jake decides to leave New York. It's 2011. He's like, I'm leaving New York. I'm like, okay, before you leave, let's take a look at where you're going. You're going to Knoxville, Tennessee. Let's look at the deals in Knoxville, Tennessee, because I wanted to do multifamily. And Jake, he was into CrossFit. He wanted to do some type of business. He wanted to do something with passive income, right? And I said, okay, Jake, let's take a look. We look, open up the laptop, look at LoopNet, and we're like, wow, there's some deals down here. There's nothing like New York. So when you get down there, Jake, let's stay in touch and let's see if we can find something. And Monica, it took us 18 months to find that first deal together. But for us, it was just, we just wanted to get out of the business. I wanted to get out of the restaurant business, and Jake wanted to stop going to doctor's offices. And for us, I was fortunate that I had been coaching. I had been getting mentored by a real estate coach, and I sort of knew how to underwrite deals. I sort of knew how to analyze a market. The manager, right, I had a couple of little small multifamilies that I sort of knew, and Jake was the boots on the ground for us. So for us, I would say it was a marriage made in heaven, and that's what a business partnership is. It's really, it's a marriage. You're getting involved with somebody who you're going to talk to multiple times a day. This is the third time I've talked to him today. So, and it's been that way 10 years later. So for us, we're great. We work together really well. We have each other's back. He does the property management day to day. I do the education component day to day. So we've been continuing to scale the business, and we're fortunate that we found each other, to be honest with you.
Wow, I'm going to elaborate on that a little bit, Monique, if I can, because Gino's giving the puff piece right now, where all the sunshine and rainbows. But it wasn't always like that, especially for me. When I was a pharmaceutical rep, I was very organized, but I was fortunate to have great mentors. And while that 2008 time was happening, you had healthcare reform and a lot of things happening. I saw what was a great career for me at the time get totally decimated by, government reforms. And that's not to complain. It just is what it is. The company started doing layoffs every year, and they would basically tell us to go home, sit by our phone around Christmas time, and they would let us know if we had a job or not. Mm-hmm. And I realized I was at a lot of risk personally for myself and my, future, family at the time. So I knew I had to do something different. And it was just, looking and seeing, okay, who's doing well and how are they doing it? And there was a gentleman that left a big impression on my life before I really started partnering with Gino. And that was a doctor that was in the area that I was calling on. And we actually saw all of the doctors in the area getting gobbled up by these medical groups, and they're all losing their autonomy. So, I was like, what's going on here? These were, the people that were such proud members of the society, basically going from entrepreneurs to employees. And that left a big impression. I saw my industry getting crushed. And I was starting to say, what the heck is going on? But there was one doctor out of the whole entire county that I was calling on that retained his autonomy and kept his private practice. And you know what the difference was?
Tell me.
He owned real estate. He owned real estate from Florida all the way up to New York, and he didn't have to continue being a doctor. He did it because he chose. He was living life on his terms, and that left. I mean, you want to talk about an impression? I was in my 20s at the time. That left a huge impression on me. And then I started again. I was friends with Gino's brother Mark, and I knew that Gino was investing in real estate, and he was getting started in his career. So I was very fortunate to have mentors like the doctor that I mentioned and Gino mentoring me early in my career. And I think that mentorship piece just changed my life, because I went from a, floundering sales rep to someone that's in control of a very large multifamily portfolio now. And it set me free to, be on the call right now with you two fine folks. And, otherwise I'd be out there lugging a suitcase around filled with samples and sweating my butt off right now. As you said, you're having a heat wave. So, or if I would even still have a job. So it's that autonomy and freedom that real estate has provided for me and my family. That's, been such a huge, and meaningful part of my life. So. Yeah.
Thank you so much for that, Jake. You said some things that are really, really important for my ladies to hear that I really want to highlight. First of all, both of you, one of the first things that you mentioned is how you networked and how you found each other. Like you knew each other through, Jake's brother, right? So networking is such a big deal. People think that real estate is all about the numbers. Certainly the numbers are important, but the business is made in the relationships, right? That's how you guys came together. That's what built your businesses so that you could find freedom, because you had now a relationship that allowed it to happen, enabled it to happen. So such a great thing to talk about. Networking, it's so important. The other piece that I love, Jake, that you talked about was the doctor. So many of us think that we go to college or not, we get a job, and that job is going to provide us security, right? That's what we've been taught. That's what we believe. We think that's the easier route to wealth or to building a life or to having the lifestyle that we want. And the truth is, jobs put us at the mercy of someone else's ability to run a company, their cash flow, whatever the government regulations are. It puts us at the mercy of so many things and takes the control out of our own lap. So even if you love your job, it's very important to have a backup that gives you the stability, like this doctor, right? He didn't have to work anymore. He did it because it was his passion. He wanted to help people, right? And he got to do it on his own terms with his own clinic.
And he also volunteered all over the place.
That's
so, I
right.
mean, you want to talk about someone kicking down doors and making it happen. He was not only giving back more than any of the other physicians in the area, he was able to be in control of his life and provide for his family better than everyone else, as well. So I was just, wow, that made a big impression on me.
Exactly, right? So whether you want to be in real estate full time or not, understand that it can either support the other passion in your life. In this case, it was a doctor, or it could be the passion in your life, right? So for me, I retired a long time ago. I did it all on real estate, and I continue to want to work doing this because this is my passion, right? And you guys are doing a similar thing. You've got your portfolio and you've got your podcast, you're doing your education. So you're able to pursue your own passion and also support your families, right? Without working in a restaurant, without lugging samples, right? What an amazing opportunity.
Let me elaborate that a little bit, because you talked about passion, and the craziest thing about passion is we always hear this Steve Jobs quote that if you you do what you love, you'll never work a day in your life. And I think the hard thing for people to understand there, that doesn't mean and I think Gary Vee's great. We hear a lot of it. He's like, well, if you love Pokemon cards, go sell them and make $1 million doing that. Yeah, I tried that coming out of college. I played sports in college, and so I thought I was going to open up a gym, or I started off being a personal trainer. Everything that I tried to do around sports or fitness, I ultimately ended up hating, because I like doing it on my own terms, and I like to do it for fun, but I don't like, sitting there trying to personal train somebody that actually has no ambition and doesn't want to do what I tell them to do. I want to be around positive, uplifting people. And so when I was sitting there having people, do different things, they started whining and complaining, I stopped wanting to go to the gym, and that was depressing me. It was actually having like this downward spiral effect on me. And so that's when I realized, for me personally, it's about the vehicle. And that's why I believe in so much in multifamily investing, because the demographic shifts. If you're investing in an area that's growing with population growth and job growth, it is such a beautiful vehicle to grow wealth and live a life on your own terms, pursue personal and legacy wealth. That's why I love multifamily, because it's the vehicle, not necessarily the passion. For me, if I get really good at something, I put a lot of hours into it, and I'm a high performer, I'm in the right vehicle, that's when things get exciting, because now I can sit here and again, have this podcast on my own terms. So
Jake, such a good caveat. Thank you for adding that.
yeah.
I have many passions in my life. I used to be a professional dancer. I've danced all around the world. And I dated, when I was very young, I dated many dancers. Many of them were like in the San Francisco Ballet. I knew somebody on Broadway. And the interesting thing about them is they told me, Monica, don't ever become a professional dancer. It will take away your love for dance. And so even though I became competitive, I've traveled the world, I never joined a company, right? Same with travel. Like, I love to travel. My husband and I have been to 60 countries together. And I was told over and over again, don't become a travel agent, because then it just becomes a business.
Yeah, that would be a grind for sure.
Right?
Yeah.
So you don't necessarily want to turn your passion into your business, which is why it's really great. I've got my real estate business that pays the bills. I can pursue my passions as passions, right? But the other thing, Jake, that you said, which is really great, is that when you start doing something and you get really good at it, you can't help but be passionate about it, right? Like it
Fun.
becomes one of the passions. Real estate was not my passion when I started. As a matter of fact, I dug my heels in and did not want to do it. But once I got into it, I love it. I just love it. It's like the funnest thing that I do, right? So it's this passion conversation is such an interesting circular one. So thank you, Jake, for bringing that up, because we've never had that conversation on this show.
Oh, my pleasure.
Great. So you guys, talk to me about multifamily. Why do you think people should invest in multifamily? I always tell people there's a million ways to make $1 million in real estate, right?
That's the truth. That is the truth.
So talk to me about multifamily.
I think there's 4 top reasons why you invest in multifamily. The first one is cash flow. Obviously, you want to get paid every month. You want to look at it as a dividend. You don't want to speculate and buy low, sell high. You want to buy cash flow and continue to own and operate the asset. I think the second one is the appreciation. We can force the appreciation on multifamily. We don't have to worry about what the building down the street is worth. If we're taking care of our operations on our property, great, we can force that appreciation. I think the third one is the amazing tax benefits. I want everyone on here to Google the word cost segregation. The tax benefits are amazing with multifamily. And I think the fourth one, which I think is really important, especially during COVID, what's going on now, I think there's a type of cycle resiliency to multifamily. Basically, you look at it, people need a place to live. It's food, clothing, and apartments. Those are the 3 basic human needs we have, right? And as you look at demographics, where about half of the country is either a millennial or a baby boomer, those 2 demographics are basically wanting to rent. So there's going to be a demand for our apartments, for our space right now. So it's really important that you look at that as a component going forward. And if it's a basic human need, people have a demand for it. The only other thing you need to know is be in a market where it's growing, where there's jobs and there's demand for your product. So I think in a nutshell, those 4 basic reasons excite us, not only for the near term, but for the long-term benefits of multifamily.
Yeah, and I'm not sure if Gino mentioned the scalability of it as well.
No.
Everything there. It's so, and this is not to, hate on single family homes, but the beautiful thing about 100 unit apartments in one location versus 100 single family homes spread out over town is that you can hire folks, keep them in one area, get efficient with your maintenance component of it, because we believe that, buy right, manage right, and finance right. That is our framework for multifamily investing. We think it's a 3-legged stool. You have to buy it right, you have to manage it right, and you have to get the right debt in place when it comes to the financing. And a classic example is you have 100 homes spread out all over town. It's going to be very challenging to have a competent maintenance tech go in and understand the nuances of each home that was built differently, and all the components are in different places. Whereas if you have 100 units in one location, not only is his time much more efficiently used, he or she, right, is going to know how to go into each unit, because we have lady maintenance techs on our team as well. So just want to make sure we're giving a shout out. Katie in particular is a maintenance lead on our team. Anywho, it's going to be much easier to go in and understand where's the hot water heater, where's the breaker, because they are all the same and it's duplicatable. And so that's really one of the biggest pieces of it, because it's much more scalable and you can run a more efficient business.
So I just got to ask you this because it's so relevant with COVID. Right now, there's a lot of people, there are a couple of things going on with multifamily. I live in a condo complex, so I would consider, even though I own my condo, I feel like we're in a multifamily environment, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there's people going down elevators. There's the elderly that really don't want to be around anybody else, right? And then there's this issue of space. We don't have any place to go sit outside except on our balconies. So there's a lot of kind of restrictions around what we can do during this time. And I just wonder, because I'm very pro multifamily and I love condo complexes, but I kind of wonder, do you see things might adjust in the future? And if so, how?
It really depends on where you live. I think the East and the West Coast have really gotten hammered. I mean, terribly, right? We're in Tennessee. We aren't seeing it as much in Tennessee. I think there's certain things we can do with multifamily, with virtual leasing, right? I mean, because when COVID hit, we were an essential business, but we couldn't have people coming into the office. So we adopted virtual leasing the next day. I think as far as spaces, as far as design, that's going to happen. It really depends long-term what market you're in. And we're having problems, challenges, kids going back to school. We're trying to figure that out. We're trying to some type of social distancing. I am hoping that this goes away next year and we get back to some type of normalcy. Because I was watching a baseball game last night. I haven't watched baseball since it started. And it was the most painful experience. There's not one person in the crowd. I mean, it's absolutely dead. Basketball. So I just can't see a viable solution for businesses going forward. I know we're all going to be going remote. I think maybe there's going to be some type of workspace in multifamily where, I mean, a lot of these operators are going to be building. Maybe they're going to have some type of workspace remote for the amenity packages coming through, but even like pools, are people going to want to go swim in pools? It really depends. I think the senior housing is going to be a little bit different, that there has to be some type of, I'm trying to think of design space there. But for us, Jake, we haven't had that much pushback from residents as far as
yeah, I want to expand on this. I have so much to say, because you see right now there's 13,000 vacant units in New York City. Okay.
Yes.
So the key to this is following the demographic trends and the shifts. And there's a great book out there called Big Shifts Ahead that talks about what's actually going on right now. You see places like California being siphoned off into Austin. You see places like New York going to Florida. So you want to be in places where there's population and job growth. That's the name of the game. If you want multifamily simplified, population and jobs. Okay. When you see those things growing, that's where you want to invest. So could you invest in multifamily and do poorly? Yes, but it's going to be because you didn't buy it correctly, you didn't manage it correctly, you didn't finance it correctly, or you're in an area that's declining. Okay. So that's when you're looking at it, you got to make sure that you're in a market that's growing, there's jobs going to, and it makes sense. So what we've seen is, it's not that multifamily is not hot. It's that we've seen so many. Now we're in Tennessee and we're Kentucky. We've seen a tremendous amount of new applications come in from people that have been from out of state. So you're seeing it even more so now. We've seen it for a while now, but we're seeing a lot of people that are trying to get away from the cities. And it's not that people only want to own homes or something like that, because here's the thing: millennials love to rent. Older people, your boomers are actually getting into renting big time. And you also see a shift where, as a society, we're becoming more tech driven. We want our phones, we want everything on a smart TV. And I'm going to say this, I don't have data to back this up, but I know as a society, we're becoming less handy. We're not able to fix things as much. We want things handled for us. We want to be able to pick up and move the next day. So multifamily is not going anywhere. You just better hope that you're on the other end of a city that's growing. That's the biggest thing when it comes to multifamily investing. And I think, to Gino's point, there's going to be an opportunity where we're going to actually get into, we've bought existing and we've renovated. That's been our play. We're going to start building next year, actually. And I think that workspace next to the community center, where folks can go in and have an additional work office on the complex, will help. So that's going to be one of the things that we're looking at as well. And we have fitness centers on our communities, and they're open right now, and people appreciate that. I don't think multifamily is going anywhere. I think that it's just, you have to be in an area that there's demand. So.
Love that, Jake. Thank you, guys. That was so good. Because you're right. My market, I see what I see, right? So
yeah,
you guys are out there. You're the eyes on the different markets. So that was really helpful. Thank you for that. Let's talk about funding.
Yeah,
Where do you find
specifically.
private money? Is that how you do it? What's
No,
the strategy?
no, great question. So Gino and I, again, we're a story of bootstrapping in action. And when we first started out, our first deal was Gino, myself, and his brother, and we got a part owner finance deal. It was a 25-unit apartment complex. It was the three of us. We had to raise 10% of the down payment. We did that internally. Early on, I was blowing up my 401k, Roth IRA, took out a mortgage on my house, borrowed $10,000 from my grandparents. And then we implemented a strategy which we call refi and roll. So we look for undervalued mom and pop apartments. We'll talk about that later and what that means. But there are opportunities to, basically get in and renovate the units, get them up to market rents, and then refinance your cash out, and then sometimes even more than that, and then roll that into your next deal. So the first 1,000 apartments we bought, we utilized with that strategy. Since then, we've documented our journey. Our first book, Wheelbarrow Profits, documented the buy right, manage right, and finance right framework. We launched the podcast, and so we had started getting a big following. Family members, friends were asking to invest. So finally, after 1,000 units, we started opening up deals to investors, and it was because there was a demand. We didn't actually intend to build a business around investors. We've never used hard money. Maybe that $10,000 loan for my grandparents early on could be considered hard money, but not in the traditional sense, right? And so we have a large list of investors now, over 1,000 investors that have raised their hand to invest with us, and we've made relationships with those folks. But we still we're buying a deal, a 50-unit deal this Friday. We're paying cash because the number's right, and there's really it wasn't even an opportunity to get outside investors into it because it just wasn't big enough. So it just depends on the size of the deal now and what makes the most sense. So sometimes we take on investors for our deals. Sometimes, we buy them outright. And that's the beautiful thing about multifamily is that you have multiple tools in your belt in order to take deals down. We might use Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac debt. We might use a community bank. We might do a syndication. It all depends on applying the right tool to the job. So.
There's not much that I can add there other than, you're looking at a deal and you look at a deal holistically, right? How does that deal work? You're not looking at a deal just to do an owner finance deal. You look at the deal and see what strategy works. And some of those deals where we syndicated, we probably should have bought them ourselves internally, but we wanted to test the market. We learned by doing, right? So we did our first syndication and it comes out to saying, wow, we were able to raise over $2 million in 48 hours. And that was a great experience. But I think everyone out there, that there's a couple, I think, myths out in real estate. First thing is, this is a woman's show. And when we first started, there were not many women in the multifamily space, right? So MM1, Multifamily Mastery 1, our first event, we had about, 80-20, 80% males, 20% females. Our Multifamily Mastery 3, which was last year in October, it was probably 60-40. So I think the limiting, as attendees, I think one of the limiting beliefs is, that when a woman goes and gets into the space, they're probably going to say, oh, this is a male-dominated space. It really isn't. If you go on and you look at the podcast and you look at all the women out there, there are a lot of women in the space. We have, our staff, a lot of women in property management, a lot of women.
Property management team is dominated, by females. And that's the thing. And the great thing is that our employees actually invest on our deals. So there's been a lot of people that started within the company and that are now actually investors because we allow our employees to invest dollar for dollar into our deals.
And I think the important thing is the objection that people have when they get into multifamily. They say they need money. You don't really need money. What you need is the education. And then you need to know what tool to use. Because we owner financed the 281 unit deals, an $11 million deal. We brought no money to the table. The owner financed 20% of the down payment. Now, that wasn't our first deal. It was our fifth deal. So we went through a couple of deals already. But people get stopped at multifamily because they're like, it's commercial financing, it's 5 units or more. They get overwhelmed. Don't get overwhelmed.
There's terms they're saying I don't understand. What's a cap rate? And what's the SREO? And there's things that they don't know, and they're like,
Yeah, and if you can buy a single family home, you can learn how to buy a duplex. Then you can learn how to buy a 5-plex, and then all of a sudden 5-plex turns into a 10-plex. And I think the dopamine effect of wanting to get it done today is part of the problem. And I don't even think we stress this on the show, and we should. Everything in life that's worth getting is the long game, right? And multifamily is really a long sport. I mean, my father was a farmer in Italy, right? You plant a seed, you water that seed, you grow it. 5 months later, You hope to get some yield from it. It's the same thing in multifamily and in any business. You're putting work on the front end, taking that risk. That's where this country is great. You're an entrepreneur. You're taking the risk. You used the word leverage before. You're leveraging other people's time, other people's experience, and you're taking the risk on the front end, hoping that 6 months later or a year later, you're able to refinance money out or to sell the property, to do whatever. And that's what I think people have to focus on with multifamily. Single family homes is more transactional. So transactions are great. Jake and I like to say they pay the bills, right? Equity is what makes you rich. And I think multifamily, over time, it may take you 18 months to get that deal paid back to you or whatever that may be. But then after that, you have cash flow. So I think that's where people have to focus on. Don't worry so much about where the down payment's going to come. Because if you have a great deal, you're going to be looking for people to invest in that deal. And you're going to be able to find people to invest with, whether it's a partner, whether it's a capital raise, or whatever that may be. Just focus on looking for those deals.
I want to piggyback off that for a second because I like landscaping is my therapy. I think this spring and fall alone, I probably put 2,500 plants in the ground in my house. Like I'm really hardcore into it. And you notice with perennials, okay, for folks out there, perennials are the ones that come back year after year. Okay, you see after about year 2 and 3, your perennials really start to take hold. They really start to flourish and grow. And Gino was mentioning the farmer. Multifamily is so similar because yes, you can buy deals and no cash flow from day one. But when you really start to hone in on your operations after year 1, after year 2, after year 3, that's usually the time when you're able to refinance the money out because the thing's humming along and it's doing very well. So there is that 2 to 3 year horizon. And for some people, they can't see that far. They get so stuck in today, and multifamily is a long game, and it's about stacking assets and cash flow and building that up over time. It's not instant gratification. And I think that's the thing why when people get into it, it's this pie in the sky, and then they might be in it for 6 months. And when they mean in it, they're shopping for deals and they don't get anything and they quit. That's the thing. I mean, the best thing that Gino and I've ever done, we hung in there, right? We didn't quit. It took us 18 months to get that first deal, but that's what, I think really paid off more than anything. So.
Guys, that was so valuable. So I was just on Entrepreneurs on Fire, and one of the questions he asked was, what's the key to being successful in real estate? And for me, it was persistence. You have to hang in there. And I tell people all the time on this show, give yourself the time to be right, because there are cycles. You're learning a business, so there's a learning curve. Things go wrong. You need to have that long-term mentality, or you could make a quick buck, maybe, and that would be awesome. But more likely, at some point, you will get crushed because you didn't give yourself the time. The people that got crushed in 2008 were the people that didn't give themselves the time to be right so they could carry those properties, and they over-leveraged. But the big thing was really they had to get out, right? Because they hadn't given themselves the time to be right. So thank you so much for bringing that up. That was so well said. And I love the garden analogy too.
So it keeps me sane after all these shows during the week, right?
I know. And I have to say, like, the gardens these days are gorgeous during COVID. Everybody's out there gardening. Like, get your hands in the ground. It's really literally helps to ground people, right? So good. So guys, tell me about your book, The Honeybee.
You want to go for it, Mr. Stenziano? I mean, it's written about a pharmaceutical rep who has I would say, less than mediocre life, right? He's not happy. He's just doing a job. He's a sales guy. He's driving along one day and he gets a flat tire and he gets picked up by this older gentleman in a bee suit. He thinks he's an alien, right? And he gets in this older gentleman's car, and his car is beat up, and he drives to this gentleman's house. His name is Tom the beekeeper. And he pulls into this palatial estate called Tributary Acres. And he's like, what does this guy do for a living? And, Tom's an older gentleman. He's retired. And Noah gets to meet him. And it's really all about, getting introduced to something and really trying to build multiple streams of revenue and really trying to get out of the rat race. And Noah goes back to Tom several times throughout his journey of how to start. Noah basically starts with an Airbnb in his basement. He starts that first deal, really take action. And then from there, how do you start scaling up and adding assets? And then from there, how do you do something? It's not how, it's who can help you out. And he learns all these really great lessons from Tom. And I think the metaphor in the book is great, because if you're a beekeeper, who makes the money? It's the beekeeper. The bee is just trained to go and make honey. The bee doesn't ask. The bee works really hard, and it's a metaphor for the worker, right? And we don't really think of that. And it's funny because Tom is the one who is taking all the risk. He's the one who's getting paid last, and the bee is just doing his work, just like Noah and just like Jake and Gino were. And if you get that metaphor, I think some people will just have that epiphany moment of saying, wow, I am that bee. I'm just doing my work day in, day out. I'm the traffic fighter. I'm not really thinking about what the next day will provide for me or how I'm growing my life. I'm getting out of my comfort zone. I'm just doing the same thing day in and day out. And for us, it's not just about creating those streams of revenue. It's what do you do with those streams of revenue? So at the end of the story, it was just a great way to end the story. And it's not just about making money, but also making money matter.
Yeah, and I think the thing that the constant feedback we get is that people get a little bit emotional at times because they see themselves at different points in their journey. And then the really cool feedback that we get is that people tell us that, oh, I'm Noah right now at deal number 3, or I met Noah at this place in the book. So, for anybody out there, feel free to reach out to us and, or leave a review on Amazon if you read it and tell us where you're at, because I think we've been there. This is not something we just made up. This is from experience, and we love hearing from folks out there.
I love that, Jake. It's true. We all have different inflection points, from that epiphany aha moment to, all right, it's time to take education, to it's time to take action, buy my first deal, to it's, all right, I've got a deal, let me buy another deal, to it's, I've got 4 or 5 deals, how do I start juggling life, to the next epiphany or the aha or the inflection of,
I got this shiny object and I invested over here and shouldn't have and got burned.
Yes,
right?
That's right. So, yes, that was a big lesson, because Noah goes out and he invests in a restaurant, and restaurant is not his complementary stream. Now, if he invested in the real estate in the restaurant, great, but he invests in a business that he doesn't know. So if you're in real estate, and complementary business would be the education aspect, the syndication aspect, the property management aspect of it. Those are all complementary streams of revenue in multifamily. And those lessons are great. And just looking at all those inflection points and seeing where you are and seeing how to just think about it, just have an open mind and saying, with the end in mind. We're such linear creatures, I think, where we see something and it's so hard to grasp the future. Like, you have 5 units. How do I get to 100? There's just no way for me to get it. And I think if you take Noah's path and you keep asking yourself the right questions, not can I, it's how can I? It's not how do I do this? It's who can help me do this? All these questions that we need to ask ourselves, because the better questions we ask, the better answers we're going to get.
Oh my goodness, that was amazing. Thank you. So guys, we're almost out of time. We need to move on to extra. We've got 2 other questions we wanted to cover. One was going to be how to build a business, not a job, which I'm really excited about. We are going to cover that in extra. And then we're also going to talk about mom and pop apartments. Jake, could you give us a little bit of a rundown on what that's going to look like in extra?
Yeah, so here's the thing. These are hyper-focused lists, if you will, and there's very much a specific way to find these deals. And I think that we've, over time, through doing and then refining our processes, we've figured out how to really hone in and target and who's going to be the mom and pop that you can really go in and do that refine roll strategy with. So I think it'll be great to cover that after. Yeah.
Perfect. And you do mostly mom and pops, right?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, that was, from the beginning, our bread and butter. And even to this day, that's what we target, because we want an underperforming business that we can go in and really fix the management piece, because it's the people in multifamily who solve problems that make the most money. So it's not going in and just hunky dory, we're going to buy it off the shelf retail and it's going to be great. It's identifying those mom and pops and then solving the problems. That's when folks really get paid in this business.
Love it. Okie doke. So guys, can you tell everybody how they can reach you?
Yeah, really, really simple. You can go to, and this is such a good segue into the book as well, because you can go to jakeandgino.com/honeybee. There you'll receive a free download of our credibility book. That's actually something we used early on in our career to show people this was our business plan. This is what we plan on doing with the property. It's a great way to attract investors and tell brokers about yourselves, so that brokers in town know, hey, Jake and Gino like the mom and pop apartments, so that, brokers need to know what to bring you. So credibility book is a great way to get, your name out there and let folks know what you're about. And then you'll also receive a free Honeybee resources. You can download our podcast and actually apply to work with our team. So you can go to jakeandgino.com/honeybee.
Love it. Thank you, guys. So are you ready for our 3 rapid fire questions?
Oh, bring it
Yes.
on.
All righty, here we go. Give us one super tip on how to get started investing in real estate.
So I would say no shiny object syndrome. Pick one niche and own it. If you want single family homes, there's nothing wrong with them. Own them. If you want self storage, own it. If you want mobile home parks, own it. Office, retail, commercial, multifamily, just own that asset and really learn everything there is to it.
Yeah, and very simply put on my end, I call this our success formula. I believe that education times action will equal your result. That is the success equation to get you in the game, to get that first deal done. So I believe everyone needs to get educated, and then they have to take action, and the education piece is crucial. Fortunately for myself, I had a great partner as a mentor, and that really shortened my learning curve, and that's what we're all about with Jake and Gino. So,
Love it. Give us one strategy on being successful in real estate investing.
So for me, the strategy would be to have an accountability partner. I don't know if it's a strategy or I'll give you two. Really planning your day and knowing what you want to achieve, whether it's a quarterly priority, a yearly goal, 3-year, 5-year. I think you really need that. And I think the other thing is having that accountability partner. I mean, because sometimes you just don't want to analyze the deal. Sometimes you don't want to send your underwriting over. Sometimes you don't want to do the due diligence. Sometimes you don't want to call the broker. And you know what? I'm not doing it for myself, but I'm doing it for Jake and his wife, Whitney, and their 2 kids. So I'm doing it for them. So that accountability piece to me has been huge for the last 10 years or so.
yeah, that's huge. And I would say buy right. And so that's the first leg of our strategy. And maybe it's because we taught for an hour to our class. We do a Monday class every week, to our students. But when you buy right and you set clarity up for yourself and your team, you can really take a lot of the stress off. And what do I mean by that? Know what you're willing to accept. This is the vintage that I'm looking for. This is the cap rate that I'm willing to accept. This is the cash on cash return that I'm willing to accept. And then you go hunting. So you put your parameters in place, and then you don't got to think, well, will I do this or will I not? You get decision and thought fatigue. Set your parameters up on the front end. This is what I'm willing to accept. This is the market that I want, et cetera, et cetera. I will not buy anything, older than 1980. When you do that, you can quickly funnel and identify opportunities and not get decision fatigue. And it won't take as long to underwrite because you have very clear parameters in place. And I think it sets you at ease as well. And it takes some of that stress in the beginning off of like saying, oh, is this a deal? Do I go for it? Do I not? Let the spreadsheets and the parameters take over.
Great. And then guys, what is one daily practice that you would say contributes to your personal success?
So for me, I've got 6 kids. My wife homeschools our kids and wake up in the morning. I kiss them every morning. I kiss them goodnight to bed every night. I know why I'm doing what I'm doing. I'm doing it for them. And I would love to show more gratitude. It's just that it's sometimes you just slip through the day. We live in the most amazing country in the world. I wish I would show more gratitude. I think we should all show more gratitude. But having my family and having my partner, I know what I'm doing, why I'm doing it. I have the clarity. So for me, that daily affirmation of my family being there and being a role model to them and being a role model to my wife and just sticking it to my wife saying, hey, look who I helped today. Just giving it a little zing every now and again. That makes me feel good. That's a dopamine hit for me. That keeps me going. So.
Yeah, I'm very regimented and structured. I've been using this, and everyone laughs at me. This is what I call my coach's sheet. Since in my pharmaceutical days, I had a piece of cardstock sitting with me, and I had the yellow brick road. I went to this doctor's office, this meeting throughout. I've continued on. My morning is structured. I have my goals on here. I write them down every day, and I know exactly where I'm going. Like this is on the sheet for the day, and I don't miss that. So it's just and if I miss, it can go on the next day or it can go on the back, and then it gets rolled over into the next week. So it's time blocking and just nailing it every week. I will not miss on that, and it's probably been one of the biggest contributing factors to my success. Is just extremely detailed and planned out for the day, and just I don't have. It goes back to not having to think. I don't want to have to. I want to make big decisions on visionary stuff that's going to affect the company. I don't want to have to. Oh, where am I going next? What I got to think about? This color jeans and this yada yada. Get as structured and oriented as you can. That way, you can spend that mind energy on the important stuff. So.
I love that, you guys. Thank you so much. This portion of the show has been amazing. Thanks for all you've shared.
Thanks, Monica.
So ladies, stay tuned for extra. We got more coming. There's how to build a business, not a job, and how to implement Jake and Gino's mom and pop strategy. And so stay tuned for extra. If you are subscribed, if you're not subscribed but would like to be, go to Real Estate Investing for Women Extra extra.com. You get the first 7 days for free, so you can get access to this particular extra and a bunch of others. Check it out. And if you love it, you stay registered. And if you don't, no problem. You don't have to stay registered. So go to realestatinvestingforwomenextra.com. For those of you that are leaving us now, thank you so much for joining us. I look forward to seeing you next time. And until then, remember, goals without action are just dreams. So get out there, take action, and create the life your heart deeply desires. I'll see you soon. Bye. I hope you enjoyed today's show. If you'd like to download my favorite investing strategy, just go to blissfulinvestor.com. See you next time.